Hi there, welcome to Jesse's Cyber Vault. In this episode, we are going to talk about the history of cryptography. You might have heard a lot about cryptography. Let's delve into some history. The English word cryptography derives from Greek and translates roughly to hidden writing. For thousands of years, groups who wanted to communicate in secret developed methods to write their messages in a way that only the intended recipient could read. In the information age, almost all communication is subjected to some sort of eavesdropping, and as a result, cryptography is advanced rapidly. Understanding how cryptography works is important for anyone who wants to be sure that their data and communication is safe. Cryptography, the art and science of securing communication, has a rich history stretching back thousands of years. It began with simple methods for concealing messages and has evolved into complex mathematical systems that underpin modern cybersecurity. Here is chronological exploration. We will classify cryptography into ancient cryptography, the Middle Ages, early modern period, the 20th century, the digital revolution, modern cryptography, and the quantum threat and post-quantum threat cryptography. Let's start with ancient cryptography. Ancient cryptography, the beginning of secret communication. Here, we have the Egyptian hieroglyphs, being the sacred carvings. Back in the days of ancient Egypt, a pharaoh wanted to send a secret message to his troops way out on the battlefield. He didn't want his enemies to read it, so he came up with a clever idea. He hired a scribe to write with message using a super weird symbols, kind of like a super early code. The generation in the field had a copy of the code book, so he could translate the message and know what to do. But if the enemy intercepted it, all they would see were those crazy symbols. That's basically how the idea of cryptography was born, a way to keep messages safe and secret. The next is the Spartan sigil, a strip of parchment wood around a cylindrical rod was used to write messages. Only someone with a rod of the same diameter could decode that message. The next is the Caesar cipher. Julius Caesar used a substitution cipher that shifted letters in the alphabet by a fixed number. For example, A became a D. With the above example, we are sending this message, Jesus is Lord, which we now have it as NHVXV space LV space ORUG. This is now a ciphertext. We move on to the next classification, that is the Middle Age. This phase is also known as the emergence of cryptanalysis. In this, we have the Arab cryptanalysis in the 9th century. Here is where Al-Kindi, an Arab mathematician, wrote a manuscript on deciphering cryptographic messages. This introduced frequency analysis, a method to break substitution ciphers by studying the frequency of letters in a ciphertext. This marked the beginning of cryptanalysis as a systematic science. Polyalphabetic ciphers. Leon Battista Alberti developed a ciphertext and introduced the idea of polyalphabetic ciphers, which use multiple substitution alphabets. This reduced the effectiveness of frequency analysis. The next is the Vigenère cipher. In 1553, Blaise de Vigenère developed a cipher that used a repeating keyword to encode messages. It remained one of the robust ciphers until the 19th century. This cipher was ultimately cracked by Charles Babbage and Frederick Kaczynski using patterns in a repeating key. The third phase, the early modern period, this increased the complexity of cipher. This was created by Antoine and Bonaventure Rossignol, cryptographers for Louis XIV. With this, they substituted entire syllables or words with numbers, creating a highly complex substitution cipher. This cipher remained undeciphered until Etienne Bazaris cracked it in the 19th century. Pardon me for the names. Thomas Jefferson invented a real cipher, a physical device for encoding and decoding messages. The concept resurfaced in the 20th century as the US Army's M94 cipher machine. The fourth phase is the 20th century. This is where cryptography meets machines. Cipher machines, like the ADF-GVX cipher, were used to secure military communication. But there was a flaw to this technology. They were vulnerable to frequency analysis and operator errors. The next under the 20th century phase is the Enigma machine. The German Enigma machine used rotors to create polyalphabetic substitution. Each key press generates a different substitution, making ciphertext complex. The Enigma machine was cracked by allied cryptographers, including Alan Turing, developed methods and machines like the Bombay to crack Enigma encrypted messages. Decoding the Enigma machine was pivotal in the World War II. We also have the one-time pad, OTP. This was introduced in the 1917 by Gilbert Vernon. This is a theoretically unbreakable cipher when the key is truly random, used only once, and kept secret. The limitation for this was that it was difficult to manage in practical applications due to the need for perfectly synchronized keys. The fifth phase is the digital revolution, known as cryptography in computer age. In here, we are going to talk about symmetric cryptography. An example of symmetric cryptography is the DES, Data Encryption Standard, and this was adopted by the US government in 1976. The symmetric key algorithm was encrypted data up to 64 bits. The DES is vulnerable to brute force attacks, and this was replaced by AES in 2001. We also have the asymmetric encryption. Example is the RSA. This involves the use of two keys, a private key and a public key, while symmetric key involves the use of one key. Now let's talk about modern cryptography. We have the Advanced Encryption Standard, AES. This replaced the DES as a standard for symmetric encryption. This operates on a 128-bit block, using 128, 192, or 256-bit keys. This is commonly used in Wi-Fi encryption. We also have the end-to-end encryption. Like what we use in WhatsApp, this is to ensure that only the intended recipient can receive the message and decode it. This combines symmetric encryption because of its speed and asymmetric encryption for secure key exchange. The last but not the least on the list is the quantum threat and the post-quantum cryptography. Quantum computers could break traditional algorithms like RSA and ECC using the Shor's algorithm, which efficiently factors large numbers. And that was a big challenge. The solutions are lattice-based cryptography, hash-based cryptography, and quantum key distribution. In conclusion, from simple substitution to advanced algorithm, cryptography has evolved to meet the needs of increasingly interconnected world. It now underpins essential services like online banking, secure messages, and blockchain technology. And its future lies in adapting to the quantum era. We finally come to an end of another successful session. I bet once again there is a lot to cramp on.